We're dialed? Mm-hmm. Sweet. Are you guys heading back today?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Marji Camp.
Marji Camp.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize that I didn't wear your outfit today.
Jesus Christ. Is that the condoms thing?
Yeah.
Oh, totally. They're.
Because I was confused last night when I walked up on that.
I had no idea. They're just like, put this on. I'm like, well, okay, whatever.
I had seen that onesie out in the wild, but then when it was paired with you, I was like, wait a minute.
What the hell is going on?
Nicole says she has like 100 different people that have been in that.
She wants to make a calendar.
She says it's been washed. It's clean.
That was my next question.
It smelled like fabric.
I don't know, whatever. I'm pretty dirty.
Yeah.
So.
It was fine. Well, that was dirty. What happened?
That was
something else. Those pictures.
You know that's going to be a sticker, right?
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. That's like from the
zooming in.
from the Brokeback collection.
There was a really hard push on that nipple.
Yeah. Why were you pinching it? And you just stood there for so long.
If I'm in, I'm all fucking in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were not all fucking in. You were supposed to put it on.
No. There is a border.
No.
We found Todd's
tight, just like you like it.
I am not putting that fucker on.
I put it on. Yeah. It was fine.
Well, that made more sense, though.
Yeah.
Good times. Okay, so Marji Camp, I thought it'd be good to do a debrief.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, coming out of camp. So a couple goals. Talk about camp. Maybe build out a little bit for people who haven't been to camp that might be interested in doing it in the future.
Uh-huh.
So give people a sense of what it is, how it rolls. But then also, we're on whatever it is, June 8th, 9th or something.
8th.
Talk about that window from now to Marji Gesick.
Okay.
And just like for those folks or somebody who's at home who didn't come to Marji Camp, can you get ready? Do they have time? What should they be doing?
Uh-huh. Surprise.
Larry, what's up? Good morning. Mm-hmm. Good to see you.
He told us he's going to
He told us. He's like, I'm going to bring you some scopes.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because everyone wants to hear us.
Right.
chopping.
That would be a first. That would be a first. So how was the group? Who'd you have?
We had group 4.
Yep.
Fantastic group. So we had a pretty solid level of riders.
So experienced riders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, yes and no. I mean, we had.
experience in different backgrounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had we had one guy who was coming off an Ironman background and had some experience mountain biking, but not a ton. But man,
Not
watching
up here.
his skills improve over just a 48-hour period.
Amazing.
He rocked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can't take all the credit from that because we had a whole group of people who were super supportive of him too. So like,
We clicked. Our group
yeah,
was great.
it really did click. Yeah.
What was the mix like amongst your crew? Had they done Marji or had they not?
All but 2 had done Marji.
Yep.
And you had 6 people? 5?
We had
Yes.
5. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we, including Tom Ryan. So he did the out and back on foot last year.
Yeah.
That
That's
was
amazing.
That's crazy.
I had him last year too. So we kind of had that jiving already.
Yeah.
So.
And there were four coaches. So that was good. We coached with Vince and then with Matt.
Yep.
Yeah.
You said there were 2 folks that hadn't done Marji before.
Yes.
Had anybody in the group been to camp before?
In the whole group?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tom had been there.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I thought Tom had been.
the other
I don't know if Corey had been there or not. I can't remember what he said. Corey and
Chuck. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Do you know what their goals were or why they came to camp? Like, what did they hope to get out of it?
just previewing the trails, especially in the daytime.
Gotcha.
Comfortable.
Getting comfortable on them again. And just experience, community.
Out of our 2 fresh meets, we had one doing the 50, one doing the 100. So it was a good blend. And the guy, Joe, he was doing the 100. He's ridden up here a bunch. So like he knew the trail system pretty good. So that was a benefit too.
So what was your goal or approach, or what has it been? Because you've coached now a couple of years.
3.
Yeah, 3 years.
At Marji Camp. When you show up and you're going into that first morning, first ride, and you've got a total of 4 rides, How are you coming at it? What do you want to show them? What do you want to do with your group?
Well, we have like an overall, obviously plans can change, but we have an overall idea on distance and time and route and all that. But then we kind of want to get out there the first, hour or so, see where we're at. And we actually stopped a few times and kind of went over some just basic skill stuff too.
Yeah, the first day we did some sessioning.
Yeah.
We didn't do a ton of sessioning the second day.
No.
But getting a feel for everybody's level
Mm-hmm.
and skill, and then kind of going from there.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about what their goals, what races they're doing, what their background was, so we can get a feel for each of the riders. And then, when it come down to laying out our routes or picking our routes, it was like there were certain things we wanted to hit. The luge climb. Let's see what else we wanted to make sure.
Well, they wanted
Top of
to
the
do
world.
top
You
of
got to
the
hit top of the world.
Yeah.
Last year we didn't do top of the world. We rode when we went to Forestville. We went the other direction because it's a lot of
grassy all
grass
the way
trail
there.
So like the adventure to get to top of the world is kind of blah.
Yeah.
But once you get, everybody wants to see if they can ride it.
Yeah.
Because they can't ride it
Yeah.
in a race.
How'd your group do?
They did great.
Yeah.
I think everybody rode it.
No,
Or
a couple people
most of
didn't,
them,
but
or at least chunks of it.
they would
Yeah.
try it.
Did anybody clean all of it?
Yeah.
We had a few
Yeah.
clean.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And then we advised them, we're like, you're probably not going to be able to do this in the race.
It's just going to be super crowded.
Yeah.
So
It's a people
we got to the
thing,
top.
so-
I pulled my phone out and played some bagpipes.
Yeah.
As if
It was
running up,
good.
So they
Yeah.
got
Oh,
the
that's
feel.
They got the feeling.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then other high points we wanted to. I always love to take people up the Mount Marquette Road
Down
climb.
scary.
Yeah, because the climb. I don't know about everybody else, but it feels like to me every time I climb it, it gets a little less because you're more familiar. That first time you climb it, it's like, does this ever freaking end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it gets, then you start learning it's a little more manageable.
That makes a ton of sense.
Things we tried to do with our group too is go over like the little daunting fears of Margie, like resupplying and stuff like that. Everybody's like, oh, am I going to make it here? And they don't realize like, all you got to do is there's going to be cars everywhere.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's there
Or
for.
how Jackson Mine is set up. Like, where should my family park? How, all that stuff.
Like you talked about last time, like filling in those gaps that they don't know,
Did you guys get any questions on checkpoints or navigation or any of that signage?
A little bit.
yeah.
Yeah. We addressed that anyways. It wasn't so much that they brought it up, but we talked a lot about signage that, during the day, you just got to be heads up about it. At night, it's super reflective.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to
signage.
find.
Like I know, there's that fear of you got to have your Garmin, right? You got to have the Garmin file and it's there or whatever file whatever
you're
you
using.
use.
Whatever device you're
But
using.
like,
Whatever your device.
in all honesty, like if that craps out on you, like it's as long as you have your eyes up, you can get
Should
through
be
this thing. Like, especially at night, I think it actually gets easier
Yeah.
because like them things
Well,
stand
for
out like a
signage.
sore thumb. Yeah.
Because of how reflective it is.
Yeah.
They like light up.
Yeah,
as though
they do.
Lights
They
on
do.
them.
And the checkpoints were a big one. Like everybody is. I know our first time doing Margie, and it was the year that everything was on Jasper Knob.
Yeah.
So we did 100 miles, and
We
we're
thought
like,
we missed
what the
them.
fuck?
Yeah.
And we're looking behind trees,
Yeah.
Yep.
and like what
Well,
these
'cause
stashes.
we'd heard about
Is this
you.
like a seeking day? Like I can go seek it, and we kind of alleviated some fears. So it's like you're gonna see a big orange sign.
Yeah.
It might still fuck with you, but like you're gonna see it
Yeah.
coming up. So
Yeah, we told them too. Like, you might find empty ones. Maybe take a picture of it because you never know. You know, if you get something in your bag at check-in, bring it with
Yeah.
you because you might need it at the
yeah,
end.
that coin at the check-in.
That was a tricky
and
one.
like read the instructions.
Yeah, read. Yeah, like you learned in elementary school.
That year that they had to bring the token with them to the finish line.
That
and
was our first year.
Was that your first
Yeah.
year?
Yeah.
I can't remember the guy's name. He's a successful NUE racer competitor.
You said he went back to his hotel or something to go pick it up.
Yeah.
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 But he lost like 12 places because it took him 2 hours.
But he did it.
He did do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't like me
No.
for a while. he was
Yeah.
he was like, well, first he missed the shit on Jasper.
Oh.
I don't think he didn't even go up Jasper.
Oh,
See,
yeah,
you could
that's-
easily not do that.
Yeah.
You could look at the map and be like, I'm not going to do that.
I
Right.
think it's
Yeah.
pretty safe to say if you can look at the map and it says, "Oh, I could just omit this and cheat this little corner,"
Then
there's
maybe
probably
it's there.
something there.
Yeah.
He missed that. He went back. He was still in good shape when he got back in the standings.
Yeah.
And then it came down to the token that he had to bring. And I'm like, well, where's the token you're supposed to bring that we gave you? And he's like,
I don't know. So
it's at the hotel. And I said, well, it looks like you're taking a ride. And he
You
was
have
like,
to ride
what?
his bike to the hotel?
I have to go get it? And I said, yes.
yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Those
the
are
token.
rules.
That's the token.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
And we addressed, what is a token? It doesn't have to be a wood nickel. It could be whatever you deem it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it's candy, don't eat that son of a bitch.
Yeah. Exactly. And those sticks could be different. And I want to know who sits there and colors with a Sharpie on all those sticks. You have kids do that, right? Like,
Stacy's mom.
kids'
oh my gosh.
man.
Stacy's mom, Stacy, and then Kate jumps in on that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That Dum Dum idea, literally, the first year we did it, that idea came up, I think, on Tuesday of race week. And we were like, it just, somehow candy came up, and I was like, God damn Dum Dums. We need Dum Dums at the checkpoints.
Yeah.
And then we're like, all right, well, where are we going to get 7,000 Dum Dums? Work that out. And then we had 7,000 Dum Dums, and we're like, well, fuck. There's going to be like 4 checkpoints. How are we going to differentiate?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we're going to have to buy some markers and color sticks. That's what they did.
Did you use Dum Dums last year? We didn't make it to the checkpoint.
There was, I think, one.
Okay.
One Dum Dum.
Yeah, we didn't make
Okay.
it.
Last year. Maybe, was that at the finish? I think it was on top of Jasper.
Okay.
Dum Dum
Well, yeah.
checkpoint. Right? Fitting.
Sense.
Now it's almost got to be like part of the tradition. It's like being like having
Yeah.
Jasper.
It just fits. It just fits the vibe. So, do you think that your campers at the end of the night last night, they're heading home today? They feel more confident? They feel better?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You could see it. Just without them even vocalizing it, you could see it.
I got to share a story about one of our athletes last year, Karen. Like when, so you didn't do a lot of the talking this year at the campfire talks, but last year she was super nervous, and
She was signed up for the run.
when she was ready to switch to the 15, and then after your talk, like, and I think it's your talk plus the environment so supportive. For those who haven't done camp, this is the kind of the vibe that goes on, and like she almost got like teary, and it's like, fuck it, I'm doing the 50. And that was super awesome to see, to see that growth and that inspiration.
That's
it's
what camp's
awesome.
for.
I know.
That's
So
what
we
it's all
thank
about.
you for that because we've told her the same shit. But it's kind of like too close.
100%.
Yeah.
I
It
totally
was-
get that.
yeah.
I have kids. I know.
Yeah.
Like you guys have kids
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
God, I just had a question. What the fuck was it? Oh, mountain bike instructor certification or credentials. Do you guys have any?
Yep.
Yeah, skills
Skills coach.
Skills
Yeah.
coach, yeah.
Skills coach. Who certified you?
BICP.
BICP.
Yeah.
Okay. That's, I don't think I've ever said this at camp or said this to the coaches or anything. But so if you were to, BICP probably has a certain list of requirements, right? To become a
Yep.
certified instructor. For Margie Camp, the requirements that we have, or I'll say I have, is the person's got to have an array of experiences with Margie. I do not care if they've buckled or how fast they finish or how slow they finished. I don't even care if they've finished.
Right.
They can be a multi-year quitter. But part of that is, if you put somebody in as a coach that's unique, I think, that you're putting somebody in who has yet to successfully complete the event, and they're literally sitting there coaching people who are coming in to finish.
Right.
And we do it that way because it's about the culture, the values, the vibe, what the community is about. That's the most important thing to relay. And actually, your story about Karen, actually, if that talk is what got her over the hump to do it, like, I don't need somebody to certify me to
Right.
help people, right?
Yeah.
It's like that inspiration, it's that connection, and it's sort of just the standards that we have.
Yeah.
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 That's been one thing that's always been big, because I'll have people come in who are not really what I would say embedded yet in the community. Maybe never will be, but they'll come in and they'll like throw their resume down and be like, look at all these certifications. And I'm like, just take it. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Because if you're not the right personal fit, the right motivational fit, the right culture fit, you're not the right fit.
Right.
I don't care how good of a biker you are.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to that same message we have even in bike club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
And we did that more for our business.
yeah,
too.
for the business, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah, 100%.
And honestly, like I've been mountain biking forever.
Yeah.
And
He literally
it was,
has.
and
Look
I've
at his
had,
beard.
I've had so many people say, "Hey, you should, teach like a skills clinic." And I'm like, I never could figure out
how to
teach
it.
that, right? Like I just
Do it.
They ask, "Well, how do you do that?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. I just do it."
Do it.
But what it was really cool about taking that certification was it helped me to explain like what I was doing. Like
Yeah.
I didn't have to relearn anything,
Right.
But now I'm like, oh, okay, I can put it into words.
Yes,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any successes that jump out from your group this year? Personal successes?
I think, Winston.
Yeah, we
I think he
talked
just did great. I
Yeah,
mean,
he's the guy that's
one
coming from the Ironman background, and he went from nervous on the bike to like we did the staircase, the double
I've never
staircase.
seen such a big smile
And he
coming
just
down.
bombed it. Like after the second time
Well-
through, it was like he has the natural ability.
Yeah.
But like just
And he had
to
a great
see that
bike.
confidence
Yeah.
grow, like he killed it. Yeah.
Well, first day he said, "There's no joy in these trails."
I heard that quote.
Yeah,
Yeah, I heard that
really
quote.
funny. It was just really funny. And then day 2, he's just, even though he's tired, he was tired, but he said, "This is great." So,
There's a lot of people that come from Ironman backgrounds
yeah,
into
we
this.
talked
oh
about it.
yeah,
I mean,
think
we,
it's-
we came from that too.
we did
a long time ago.
Is it just because it's like the next challenge? What's the
think so.
progression? What's the attraction?
And I don't, I'm going to get beat up by the Ironman fan club here, but like, it seems like when you're in that culture, like you're led to believe like that's the hardest thing you could possibly do, right? You've done the hardest event in the world. And then somebody who's done something like Margie or something similar comes across and goes, "Well, I'm not so sure. You should try this." And then, I think if you're doing Ironman or you're on that path, you're looking for hard things to do.
Yeah, right.
And then when you accomplishment that, then I think you go, "Oh, there's something else."
Yeah.
I don't know, from my experience, I think you start entering it and go, "Let's see." And then you go, "Oh, this is the next level."
Well,
Right.
it could be more than that too. Like in addition to that, it could be just, I feel like Ironman's a very like selfish pursuit. It's just so solo. Although you have the support of your family and all that, I feel like you don't have a lot of the community support because it's not you against the course like it is here. It's you against your, the
person next to you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you're vying for podiums or age group slots or whatever. And that's not what, Margie or any of the 906 events are about.
Right.
So perhaps it could be they're just searching for something more fulfilling,
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That you don't have to swim at.
Yeah. Because that part
Right.
is terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yet. You don't have to swim
You
yet.
don't have to swim yet.
I don't know if you remember this. When the first time we met you, I threw an idea out to you, and I said you should do the Iron Balls triathlon.
I remember that.
Okay.
I remember
This
that.
has evolved though, because when we were going to Forestville yesterday, all those little iron ore balls, you're like that, and
There's your
like
trophy.
maybe a railroad stake that could be like your, you
well
you just
placed
assemble it in a certain shape.
There's your trophy.
Could be your trophy.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Sure.
and then it's fitting for being up here. It just
I didn't
dawned on
even
us.
when we said
Yeah.
that, we never
We're like,
even thought
"Oh,
about the
that's
iron
genius."
industry up here either.
Uh-huh.
So.
No, it's
Yeah.
true though.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
Now
It's not totally off the table.
I mean, we did give you those buoys. So
That's right.
access.
That's right. There's a lot of folks that come from Leadville background also.
Yeah.
And I think that Leadville's hasn't it been promoted or marketed as the hardest mountain bike out there?
I've heard that, but I've also heard that it's like a mountain bike race for roadies.
Yeah.
I have not to do it, so I can't speak, but this is just rumors, so don't,
Right. But
I think you could simply look at times.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think it's the same thing as like with Ironman. Folks go to do Leadville for the challenge. And and if they think it's the hardest challenge, that's part of the draw.
And then somebody goes, "Oh yeah, you should try this."
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And
Yeah.
you're right. They're seeking a challenge, and then when they find out there's a bigger challenge
Yeah.
or potentially a bigger challenge, they want to go find out.
I mean, look at marathoning. Marathoning for a long time, that was like the peak.
Top, yeah.
The top.
And now,
And
everybody,
everyone's done a marathon.
No, not everybody's done a marathon. It's still a big accomplishment, but that goal, that bar just keeps going up.
It does.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one of the guys in our group? Was it? I don't remember who it was. Said they signed up for the Moab 240.
Oh no, that was Tom.
That was Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Ryan?
I mean,
Tom
it
Ryan?
just keeps getting, and he said before the Marji 200, his longest run had been 50 miles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
and now
in
he
Port
signed
was
up for
like,
240.
there's 240-mile running race. I had no idea. Yeah.
Wild.
The
Yeah.
bar just keeps going up.
Yeah.
Like, where does it end, though?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Well, I mean, Crusher,
That's
gone to 500.
That's a legit question. Where does it end?
Where does it
Doesn't.
end?
A lot of kids at camp, this year. And actually, the probably same number as last year, but I felt that their level of engagement was higher
I
this
agree,
year.
especially in the fireside talk.
With the fireside chat and asking questions.
yeah, that
and
was great.
There were
Well,
a
I
lot
heard
of
the-
questions.
And
I
they were
heard some of the
great
coaches were
questions.
great. I mean, yeah, Larry over
Larry
there.
was good. Yeah.
Are you awake?
Being a school teacher background, that might be
I
helpful.
think he was nodding off there.
Yeah.
So,
No, the coaches are great. I was really impressed with the kids. One of the kids came up to me. I can't remember what his dad's name is. Anyway, the kid comes up and like direct eye contact. He's like, "Hey Todd, you got some zip ties? I need 3 zip ties." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, follow me." So we go in the trailer. I grab 3 zip ties. I hand them to him. He's like, "Hey, thanks. Oh, hey, by the way, love the podcast." The kid's like, he's like 13, 14.
amazing.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
You watch a podcast? He's like, "Yeah, Dad and I listened to it on the way up. It's pretty good." Keep it up. I'm like,
Keep
you did
it
a pretty
up.
good job.
Yeah. I have
Just
some
wild.
suggestions.
that's it's really cool. I don't know. So kids at Margie Camp, when we first decided to do it, it was like, okay, I don't want to run another camp because our schedule in the summer is already so packed.
Yeah.
There's just not room for it. We're going from one thing to the next to the next to the next for like 4 or 5 months. So I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, all right, the only way to do this is to bring them into camp with the adults. Well, if we bring them into camp with the adults, how is that going to impact the adult experience? And if we do that and we're okay over here on the adult side, how is it going to mesh with parents, of the kids? Because Margie Camp has always been intended to be an experience that is equivalent to the event itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't want to change it.
Sure.
I don't want to say, well, sorry guys, we're going to have to change Margie Camp now and it's going to have to be different because we're bringing kids in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting piece organizationally with the way we look at things and I said this in an email that I sent just to parents just a couple days before camp. You have to understand we're inviting you and your kids to sign up voluntarily for an adult experience or an experience that is largely adult driven.
This sounds like the explicit lyrics.
Yeah. You
of
mean
one.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just saying, hey, we're not going to change this. And the kids seeing it and experiencing it, in my book, is a good thing. But you need to be prepared for what you might see
Or here.
or hear, mostly hear,
Yeah.
right? Because of
Yeah.
the language sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think with always being very intentional and upfront with communication, we end up with very few people that come in and, I mean, how are you? You signed up. We warned you, right?
Yeah.
How can you say anything?
You can't.
You really can't.
You can't.
We do the same thing, though. We're consistent with it because in Bike Club, now this is a youth experience. And sometimes you get adults that want to come in
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
and change that, right? Because they come in, I'm a coach, but they forget they're there to coach kids and that it's the kids ride. And you'll hear coaches bitch about, oh, it's a boring trail. It's like, I don't
not
give a
about
fuck.
you.
I don't
You're
give
not
a fuck
there
if
for
you
you.
think that's a boring trail.
They're for the kids. Yeah.
It's for the kids.
Yeah.
Like I can give a kid a pebble and a puddle. that's an adventure for that kid.
Yeah.
Right? It probably
Sure.
bore the hell out of a 50-year-old guy.
Right.
Well, maybe 50-year-old woman would be bored. 50-year-old guy would be in his element. But anyway, we do the same thing with Bike Club. Like, this is a kids event. We have to adjust and moderate our language and our behavior to meet that environment. And then over here, when we come into the adult events,
Yeah.
bring the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
But yeah.
But
be
aware.
warned.
but be forewarned.
Because we don't adjust or moderate for the race.
No.
Right. So it like you said, it is the Margie experience, just, a few months early.
Well, we were
Exactly.
camping next to Gabe.
Yeah.
And his son was there.
Yep.
What was his name?
Fletcher.
Yeah.
Fletcher. Yeah.
Fletch.
And he, we watched him the whole weekend, and he's out of school now. He said he missed his. They said he missed his last day of school for camp, and but his biggest problem is going to be he's got to hold it until fall to tell everybody about Margie Camp, because he looked like he had the time of his life.
Yeah. It
You know,
really did.
and it was just great. Like, and Gabe let him have a little independence.
Yeah.
He's just off messing around at the pool. He probably just had a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure he did.
They had an interaction in front of me the second morning. So yesterday morning. And it's just classic. I think it was awesome. So the night before, Fletcher needed to get his stuff together for the next morning,
Yeah.
but he was done. He was just cashed out, game over. Like, Gabe's talking to him, and then Gabe's like, I just decided I need to back off. Let him go to sleep.
Yeah.
So then Gabe prepped his stuff for him. But the expectation is still, like, Fletcher knows the expectation is that he's going to, but then, Dad stepped in and is like, okay, we're going to give him a pass here. But then Fletcher comes up to Dad, and they're talking like, okay, did you get this? Yes. Is this ready? Yes. You got this? Yes. They're going through the checklist together. And then Fletcher's like, okay, good. And he walks away.
Yeah. Well, we saw him getting his stuff ready the first night.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, he's way more prepared than I am.
I know. You see the bag.
I'm like,
bags.
I don't know. I'm going to throw some candy in here and I'll be good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you didn't even do that. You were like, oh, there's food in here still. Left over from Margie. In his pack.
Last year.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's still good, right?
Aged.
Yeah.
I'm maybe not
Distilled.
the best example.
No. Yeah. Yeah. I was pretty excited about that.
Okay, let's talk about camps done. Whether you were a camp or not a camp, because you guys are trainers, you coach people. We're at June 8th. The race is September 18th or 19th or something. First of all, let's say that somebody is not stuck to the plan. Whatever. Let's say somebody doesn't even have a plan.
Sure.
They've barely ridden. Should they say fuck it and sell their registration? Do they have time to get ready?
They have time to get ready for not the optimal results.
Yeah.
I think you can still, the window is closing.
Yep.
But I think if you focus now, you can still get to a reasonable, successful finish if you put the work in starting now.
I think the pain threshold might increase.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
for
more
sure.
time
It's gonna be
you
as
have,
pleasant.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, like the weights,
Yeah. If you haven't done anything and you want to do 15, 18 hours, that ship probably sailed.
Yeah.
But you can still plug away if you can, just weather through it. But I think you got to do the work starting now, because that window's
Yeah, you
closed.
can't continue down that road and not be disciplined on your
And I think that also comes, that varies depending on your background. I think Ed last night was a good example. Eddie was a good example about, he says he gets really busy in the summer, and it might go 2-3 weeks before he's off his bike. Well, before he gets back on his bike. But he's got years of biking experience.
Yeah.
So I think even though your fitness levels might drop if you haven't been putting the work in, but I think your base is a little higher just because you've been doing it for a long time. So that person who's been off their bike but has been doing it for a long time has a little more slack as far as their timeline and getting it done.
Well, they can draw on their experience.
Yeah, they can draw on their
Essentially.
experience. So, but if you're starting from scratch, I mean, it's going to be a rough journey if you haven't done anything.
Especially if you haven't come to camp and been exposed to that. We have a new athlete that came to camp last minute. He got a spot, someone sold it, and he said, "Thank God I came," because we told him, what Margie's like. We really tried to paint that picture, and he even told us, he's like, yeah. But he came and he was like, "Thank God." He goes, "I'm going to go home," because we're coaching his wife too. She's doing the 15 the mini, and he's like, "I'm going to tell her, and we're going to come up here and we're going to ride that course." He goes, "Because we didn't really believe you, essentially, you know."
Yeah, we talked a little bit. Our thing is a lot of the mind stuff, and he said that too. He's like, I know, you gotta get your head in the game, and get your mental toughness. But then he said he came up here, and it was like, oh, like that's not a joke.
What you meant.
So, and I think there was a lot of people talking about that yesterday, where it was, I've done a 100-mile race. I can do this. Like, you have, and that's a great base, right? Like,
absolutely.
But like,
it's valid.
Those 100-mile, like Lumberjack is a great example. Great race. But like, that's a good true tuning race for this. Like, it's part of your build.
Time on the saddle.
Distance is the same, but
terrain
close.
is
But
totally
like, your time is going to change. So like, it's a great train. Like,
the environment's different.
Like,
totally different.
Well, it's no different than when you guys go to Colorado.
Yeah.
Totally. That environment, totally different. So you kind of acclimate as you do these different things and have these different experiences.
Yeah. I'd say Rolodex, but half the people wouldn't know what a Rolodex is.
I got you.
There's probably an app for it.
Yeah. So what would you recommend? I mean, if I called you and I'm like, hey, I really haven't done much, let's say I've got a physical job. I work construction like Eddie. I'm busy during the summer. It's not like I have 10 to 15 hours a week that I can actually ride my bike or hop on the trainer. I really want to do this, but I don't know how to get ready.
Well, we might have to have the heart to heart.
Well,
like
which event do they want to do too?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
let's say the 100. Let's go worst case.
Okay.
Well, that's gonna be a hard conversation and say, well, this is what we're gonna need out of you, and we can, weekday stuff we can try to work around work, but we're going to need a good long day once a week that you've got to set aside that time, especially at this point, and then we're going to have that frank conversation about what those results expectations look like for them too. Like if they're going in and thinking they're going to rock the crap out of this ride, you're like, okay, well, have you done this ride first? And if not, let's go off of our experience and tell them what to really expect. Yeah. And but I think it can be done. But like I said, it's down. It comes down to how much are you going to hurt, how much are you willing to put in,
how long you're willing to stay out there.
Yeah.
And just as much as if you might like that mentality of going into Margie and wanting to get it done and not quitting, that's got to start a couple months out. You can't start that morning.
No.
Just like Don was talking about with nutrition. You don't wake up and say, okay, this is my mindset today.
Yeah.
You got to start training that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, during that talk, I didn't add on to it, but the whole time the talk went on, I was sitting there thinking because I always kind of look at things. I feel like when you zoom in and you just talk about nutrition for a race, like a single day in your calendar, it's very granular.
Yeah.
And I'm always like big picture view. I zoom out 30,000 feet. Like, why are we having a conversation about just focusing on nutrition for a day?
Right.
If you can create that habit and then program it into your life, which, by the way, your quality of life's probably going to be better if you just be disciplined 24 hours a day and have this. You won't have to go get a talk about it because it's just habitually programmed.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that was
discipline.
her message, right?
You have to, that discipline you're applying to nutrition can then cross over into other areas of your life, like your training, or vice versa. So it's something you got to do early, or not even early, always.
Yeah. And I think that was her mission. Her message was that, start now, learn what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And honestly, I think you can train your gut. Like, if we
can survive off gas station food for a month, then you can do anything.
and like, look what, kind of forecast what's out there and start riding with that shit.
Yeah.
Like if you know you're going to, have grilled cheese or bratwurst. And by the way, we did a pocket bratwurst last year.
Yeah, that was great.
That sounds good.
The pocket grilled cheese was not as good.
No, it doesn't.
But you start looking at what's available to you. Like, show up at race day with a few rides under your belt, eating that crap. Casey's gas station food or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I think back to when I drove truck 30 years ago at night.
Oh, God.
You drive nights.
Oh yeah, limited selection.
So you're literally living on roller dogs,
Yeah.
No-dos, and Coke.
Oh, geez.
No-dos.
Not
what kind of Coke?
Not cocaine.
Like
Coca-Cola.
You just smash up the No-dos?
But I mean that's it's wild, but that's kind of like the lifestyle. I mean, maybe a pack of lunch, probably not. And that's just what you're running off of. And then to think like you get into the endurance world with endurance athletes.
We do the same thing. We're over the road truck drivers too. We just don't have an engine.
It's kind of funny if you step back and look at it all. Like, you start getting into racing or endurance stuff, and you let's say you start with like, I'm going to race a triathlon, or I'm going to race the War Series where I'm running pushing hard for 2 hours, and you've got all this like specific race food. I'm going to eat a block. I'm going to eat gels. I'm going to eat that. And then as you get more experience and you go further and further and further out, that the gels give way to, Snickers bars and hamburgers.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Well, yeah, because that has to feed the mental side of it too.
Yeah.
Well, and
body.
for me, and I know this isn't a talk on nutrition, but for me, I need to have something in my belly too. Like, otherwise my belly never really recognizes that it's getting fueled. If I just put gels or liquid in it, I'm still freaking hungry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
All right, so let's go back to the original question was, if somebody's not ready and they want to get ready, how can they do it, or what could they do? So what I heard is the first conversation you would have would set clear expectations. And maybe a person signed up in October and they thought that they're going to try to finish in 13 hours, 14 hours, whatever. Maybe the first step is, okay, you didn't do the work that needed to be done up to this point, so we have to adjust your expectations, right? Which people are terrible about doing.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people will show up having not done the work, but the same expectations that they had based on doing the work.
Yeah.
Then they get in there, they are like, fuck, I'm not going to hit my time goal.
So they quit.
Quitter.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And
That's how it plays out.
Yeah.
You have to be loose. Like, you can have an aim, right? Like, if you're shooting at a target, but it's got to be real soft, right? Like, if you might want to hit the bullseye, but if you're hitting on the outside edges, that's still going to be positive. But if you only are going to aim for if everything but the bullseye is a fail,
right,
then that's a good reason to talk yourself into quitting.
Right.
We talked about failing forward in our talk, and one of the things we didn't I was going to mention is, think about a baseball team in the World Series, right? Like, like, if you live in that past failure and you don't keep moving forward, look, they play a series of 7 games. They might lose the first one. They don't live there. You have to move forward because they might win the next day.
Yeah.
So, you can't stay in your
in the past.
hard locked goal. You
Right.
have to be flexible.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Hell, game 1 of the finals a couple nights ago, Pacers were down 15.
15. Yeah. You would think they were a terrible team then, right?
Right.
Like,
I went to bed. I'm like, oh, this doesn't look good. I went to bed. I get up. Halliburton hit a fucking game winner again with like a second left. They've been doing this the whole playoffs. And that's something I use it as an example just because that's like right within the event itself, right?
just because this moment sucks doesn't mean the whole thing is ruined.
Right. And you're probably going to have those moments at Margie
Oh, yeah.
where you
All the
feel
time.
like you're down by 15 and it
Well,
seems
I might as well go
insurmountable,
home,
right?
Yeah.
Can't come back,
No.
but you can.
You can.
So if they get in the hole, and let's say we'll use the proverbial Jackson Mine Park example. They come in let's say they come in the Jackson Mine Park, fucking nuked first time in. So they're just coming from Marquette, mile 65.
Yeah.
And they are nuked. And they're like, they see no way out of it. What's your advice? How do you right the ship?
Go till you can't go anymore.
Well, the first thing we tell everybody, we tell all our athletes, you don't quit in a dark spot.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so if that means pushing one foot in front of the other until, because it comes in waves. It's going to come out of it. But like, start eating, follow Don's advice again, have some candy or whatever makes you happy. Recognize that your brain is probably in a darker spot than your body is. And then just work through it and let it settle and then make that decision.
Maybe a couple other things too, like change your socks. I don't know, change your bike gloves.
Whatever brings you joy, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of those small things make a big difference.
You know what Eddie would say?
Huh?
Brush your teeth.
Oh,
Yeah,
I say that.
Do you?
Yeah, she does that all the time.
Change my socks, brush my teeth, and I feel like a new person. So I actually carry a little toothbrushy thing with me. So yeah, it makes a big difference.
I carry a speaker with me, and
music.
Half the time it just sits there and it only comes on in the dark spots. Like it's just like I might need that distraction to get me through it or lift me up, lift my spirits, whatever it is. I know the panel yesterday said smile. Talk to the competitors. Like all these are techniques that you have to have in your toolbox before time, because like when you're in that dark spot,
you don't want to talk.
You're not going to create ideas
anything.
at that point, right? You have to be practiced at it. And then hopefully they hear our voices in the back of their head going, "Oh yeah, I'm not supposed to quit now," or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion.
I agree.
If you have somebody that you're working with and they're signed up to do the 100, or even let's say the 50, I guess either one. But let's say that you as coaches feel their expectations are not in alignment with the work they've put in, but they just seem to be completely invested in the fallacy that they're okay. How do you handle that? Like, at some point, do you just...
Sometimes you have to do that kind of like a parent.
Hard conversation.
But if they're just not getting it, it's kind of like a parent and it's like they have to learn the lesson and experience, feel it, all that. And understand that could come back and bite us too, because they'd be like, well, my coaches didn't prepare me for this. Yeah. And that's not great.
And, we could be the scapegoat, but at the end of the day, if we got 10 people doing the race and 8 of them were successful and 2 of them weren't, and they know. They know if they put the work out or not, and if we're going to take the hit, that's fine. We understand that. But if they have to learn the hard way with the fail or quit, then but that, like we've talked about many times, that doesn't mean that it's the quit forever.
But sometimes that's the success too, right? That could be the success too.
That you assess what you did, and that might be, I didn't put the work in, and then make adjustment and come back.
Yeah, I don't know. I think an athlete that blames the coach.
It's happened.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
I remember a story talking to Rob. There was a guy that he had coached. The guy thought he was going to buckle.
Yeah.
Didn't even get close. Didn't get past South Trails.
Yeah.
Blamed Rob.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's not a coach thing.
No.
That's an athlete thing.
I agree.
And at that point, I'd be like, good luck.
I'm sure they blame people in other facets of their life too. So
habitually.
Deep down, they know. I think they know.
Maybe.
But it's easier.
I don't think they know.
No, because they continue to do it.
But by blaming somebody else, it's saving face. Or that's the attempt. Everybody, when they quit, they have an excuse, right? And it's always... it's usually somebody else's fault, at least initially, and then until they take an look inside, I guess.
Inventory.
Little introspection.
Yes, that's the word. Words are hard.
Words are hard. We talked, you guys brought up one of your pieces, I think toward the end, was know your why.
Yeah. And you call it woo-woo.
Well, I want to bring it up.
You just changed it. You're like, your reasons. And I'm like, you're just saying another word for why.
So first of all, I was trying to see if in that moment we could give a more concrete, a lot of people say you got to have a why or you got to know your why.
Yeah.
I didn't have it then and we didn't really unpack it. But
we didn't have time.
What I think, for this, my perspective, I'm just sharing my angle on it. my why, first of all, your why changes.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about that last night. Your why, it doesn't mean why today is the same as it was 10 years ago.
Yep. I think your why at the beginning when you signed up in October even could change.
Oh, yeah.
In 9 to 12 months.
Yeah.
I think coming to camp, your why can change
Yep.
in 48 hours.
Yeah.
Yes. Personally, for me, I think this might just be something I do. I don't even know for myself. I don't know because it works for me, but I feel like your why, there has to be something at risk. Like, I think a why is more powerful if something's at risk. If I don't do this, this is going to be the result. You know what I'm saying?
And that could be internal, it could be external.
Could be.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It could be something.
You feel vulnerable and you don't like to, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I think if people could learn to take a why and put something at stake
Okay.
Yeah.
on the why. Like, I got to fucking do this because if I don't, this happens and this isn't good.
Yeah.
The one I've heard is if I don't finish it this year, I'll have to do it again next year.
I've heard that.
And then they usually come back
That's
anyways.
legitimate,
Yeah. It is.
right? Because of finishing what you start and unfinished business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this race is specific, like for that. Like I love the marketing and that unfinished business stuff. Like who does that? Like who does this a race like this and then gets destroyed and then pays more money to do it again?
Well,
like
yeah,
you really
are a
marketed that
marketing
well.
genius there. You secured future business, like customers. Yeah. You got
By-
them coming back.
By making them
Yes.
quit.
Yeah. I know what you're up to.
Job security.
Yeah.
Job security.
Yeah.
What do you think about the hashtag quitter? What did you think first time you heard it?
I personally think it's great.
Yeah, I
'Cause
think
it
it's
makes
real,
you
like-
look at yourself and go, yeah, that's what I did. Whether it was a legit quit or not a legit quit, you still quit. You made that choice to quit.
It could be your
whatever it
brain
was.
broken half. You still
Yeah, but
quit.
you still
like
quit.
quitting doesn't necessarily have to mean you suck.
No.
Right? Like it's
Not at
just-
all.
It's,
Doesn't
but
have to
it
be
is
negative.
it's brutally truth.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yeah.
so
I think it just boils it down to simply what it is.
DNF is just like the soft, kind,
Yeah.
gentler thing.
Yeah.
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 I think what you just said is correct. Quitter makes them accept what happened,
Yeah.
regardless of how they feel. Let's just be objective and logical.
Check
what,
the facts.
what happened?
Yeah.
You quit. I don't care why.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't
isn't
matter.
Like, it isn't like hashtag quitter asterisk my frame broke
Right. Right. That's
or I was tired.
you either finished or you didn't.
Right.
You either
Black
finished or
and
you
white.
quit. There are people still when they hear that, new, they're like, man, you're fucking just an ass. But I'm like, okay, maybe.
But the alternate is finisher.
Right.
And that's what
Yes.
that is. It
Yes.
isn't like finisher, buckler. It just is finisher. This or that.
Do you have take a guess at how many people leading up to our events will go to their way to text, call, or email me and say, hey, I can't make it. I want you to take my name off the list so I don't get a DNS.
Yeah. I can see that.
How many? I don't know.
Lots.
Lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More and more.
Well, what does it matter? Someone's going to look it up.
They don't want people to know that they were signed
Who's
up and
gonna
didn't show
know?
up.
I'm not going to take the time to go look at I don't give a shit.
I won't either,
Yeah.
but it's really surprising to
Yeah.
me.
It comes down to ego, right?
Yeah,
I-
it's totally ego. Because who cares why they
Well, a
did
bit
it?
of
mean, it's
a
probably
little
good
bit of self-absorption.
Yeah, you think? Who
A little bit.
cares?
I don't take them off.
Yeah. I would.
There's a 0%
that doesn't-
chance I'll take
that doesn't surprise me. It just, life happens. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, we didn't start
We didn't do
the
Polar Ultra.
but it was a legit reason.
Yeah.
So
Who
Yes.
cares?
I mean,
Yeah.
so we had to
Life gets
did
in the
not
way
start. Big deal.
sometimes.
Yeah.
If you sign up and you didn't show up,
Yeah.
regardless of why, no judgment.
You didn't start.
You did not start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
I mean, we could change it and just go hashtag quitter on them.
You could.
Quit before you start.
Because, I mean, in my book, they did sign up. They didn't show up.
Yeah.
They didn't finish.
Yeah.
The beginning of the journey is when you've hit enter
Enter. Yeah.
and you buy that registration.
Yeah.
That's where if you don't have your why figured out then when you pay the money, yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, like what you said earlier, though, that why can change.
Oh, for sure it
from the
does.
time you hit
I
that
think
button.
sometimes when you hit that button, it's because you got caught up in it.
Yeah.
And you
Yes.
got FOMO if you didn't
Yes.
do it. So,
The momentum
yeah.
of the week.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%. That's
Don't
a
be
thing.
left out.
You
yeah.
mentioned it, the talk about you might have signed up because your buddy talked you into it. And that might be the good push, right?
Yeah,
but
the nudge.
then along the journey, as you find out more and more about this, it's like, that's where it's going to force you to find your real why, like what's driving you deep down.
Yeah. As you start to get some of the layers of your ego stripped back, and you get exposed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think doing this because it's cool is not enough to force you through those dark moments.
No, and I do think that there's a percentage of people that do come into this and they do it and they talk about the doing hard things stuff and they get into some of the ethos stuff. But I think that it's more in the like, this is kind of cool. And they talk about it and they sort of seem to emulate it. But if you were to really get down under the surface, they're not.
Right.
They're not. They're just kind of like, they're here because it feels good.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess, if they see from the outside something that looks cool, they're going to want to be part of it. They're going to try to emulate it, but they don't go beyond sort of just emulating. They're not getting deep enough into the meat.
Yeah.
There is some of that goes on. I mean, there was one dude, this was a few years ago. Every single time he came up, he quit. And that was the story every time. And every time it was like, I messaged him. I'm like, bro, we're not here to quit forever. You're here to learn how to finish one of these fucking things.
Right.
Like that has to be the bar. I felt like he had shifted the bar and just showing up to quit
It became his new norm.
Yeah, it was his new norm. Like that kept him in the crowd. And it's like, no, we're not here you're not moving forward. You're not improving. You have to finish one. And then I didn't hear from him again.
No, maybe he didn't have enough internal motivation for it. Maybe it wasn't for him.
There was some wire wasn't connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if he wasn't getting that, you have to get to the end of the game, the end of the goal at some point. It isn't just about coming up underprepared, undertrained.
Yeah.
You put in your 50 miles and say fuck it again. That's not the intention.
As an organization, do you guys take that kind of stuff personally?
I don't take it personally. I worry about the person who's allowing that to become their personal bar.
Yeah.
Because we're here to get them beyond that. It's great that they're here. It's great that they're showing up. But to me, that person has stopped progressing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say, you have, quitting is real. We've talked about that. Like that, there's reasons to it happens.
Always, yes.
Especially once you start doing stuff like this. I think you're going into events that are not just your gimme. I can do a 40-mile gravel ride, right? Like if it's not scaring you,
right?
If it's scary, it's going to be a higher chance of quitting. Like things happen, right? You're out on the bike for 20 hours. Something's going to happen. Things can happen. I remember early days of racing, the thought was, I will never quit a race, right? Like I will die trying. Like that's not that's not a sustainable attitude. It won't go on forever.
Right.
Because things happen. But every time you do quit, it gets a little easier. And I think sometimes people can get into that cycle where like it's just, it just happens. And I think sometimes they don't even realize they're in that cycle, right? Like
it's easy to let yourself off the hook.
And so I think you got to like, sometimes maybe it takes like a call from you, like, or call from us. And it's just like, you need that external, because you might not see what you're doing. You need somebody from the outside to push you past that and break that cycle.
Yeah.
25-hour mindset.
Minus a minute.
Yeah, minus a minute, exactly. I think if somebody can come in with that mindset to Margie or the equivalent to Crusher, I think that's a key. I would say that's a key for anybody who's stepping up to do this. And I'll say on the 25-hour mindset piece, I've had people tell me they get it. Yes, I have the 25-hour mindset. I'm there to the bitter end. No, they're not.
No. Because at like 18, they're like, ugh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Didn't have it.
Yeah.
Said they had it. I don't think
They probably
that
believed they had it.
Yeah, I don't think that you have any business saying you have it until you've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something you have to earn.
Yeah.
You have to do it. Because you go deep.
Sure.
But just being aware that that is a possibility, like opening your eyes, like when you talk about the 50, you can literally walk the whole thing in this 25 hours.
Yes.
But knowing that's an option helps. Like now,
Absolutely.
whether or not you can see it all the way through is a different story. But knowing it's there, because I mean, you don't always think about that, and you start looking at the clock and going, this is going to take forever, because not everybody's looking at the cutoff time. They're just going, it's going to take forever. I don't know if I can do this.
Well, that clock turns over from when whether they say it or not, they've had an idea of when they'd like to finish, and the clock ticks over, and then they're like, ugh.
What's the point?
I'm just so far past what I expected of myself, and what others expect of me.
Their goal time.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
But that's so arbitrary.
it
right?
is
How did you determine that that's more valuable than just finishing?
exactly.
And why?
Because you're probably comparing it to past experiences,
Or if you've done
had
it
them.
multiple times.
Or
and
that.
Everybody wants to do better than they did last year.
Sure.
But like conditions change.
Yeah.
Your life changes.
Yeah,
Like it
and
might
you
not be in the same
also
place.
grow older every year.
Well,
too,
that goes back
so-
to expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And adjusting them and understanding that the course may be slower, maybe faster. The humidity, where's that at?
You're older.
So many factors.
Maybe you had a rough summer and you didn't get the training in
Yeah.
yet. So
Yeah,
you
like we
can't
talked about.
expect, you can't just have that hard line expectation.
No.
So
The people that we see come in at like nearly the 25-hour. I mentioned this when Toby and Kristen were in the other day because their friend Adam finished the duathlon. And it was like right up to 25 hours, 24 something. Cable and I were standing there on the main street in the sort of reduced, tore down finish,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you can see Adam coming, just a shell of himself from the day prior, right? And even my son is sitting there having suffer crude, and he would just woke back up, and he's kind of a shell of himself. And as Adam kind of slowly stumbled by us, it was just surreal because I can look at him and I kind of can feel what he's been through in the last 25 hours. And I just cable watched him go by. I just saw Cable's eyes kind of locked on, like, holy fuck. And as he's watching Adam go away, I just turned to Cable and I said, he saw some things.
Yeah. He felt something.
He felt some things. But, he felt some things. And I think he saw some things about himself and other people.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that all day, but until you go through it, it's...
Well, and Fred Eggy kind of brought that up at our talk too. Like, how do you put yourself in that position where you're just like stripped down?
how do you practice your bonk?
It's like, yeah.
Practice your bonk.
I mean, you just can't. It happens. It happens.
What was the quote about a bonk? Somebody asked a question about a bonk, and then a guy in the back said, "Hey, that's not a bonk. If you're still talking and walking, you're not bonking."
That's going to stick with me. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
So true.
Because we like to think we've bonked it, because that becomes that thing you start playing in your mind, right? Like, I can't come back from this.
Yeah.
Like I've got a blister on my foot, and I'm sure by the time you sit with that blister in your mind for the next 4 hours, you've convinced yourself you're going to lose your foot, and it's not realistic. It goes back to check the facts, right?
Check the facts.
Check the facts.
Yeah.
It's just a fucking
Like
blister.
what you asked your
Put
kid.
some tape on it. You'll
Are
be
you
fine.
dying?
Are you dying?
Or did you die?
That was one of my questions when we did the system check for Cable at the Crusher in 2020.
Yeah.
Are you dying?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. I'm like,
All right,
we're
well, then we
good.
can
We're going to
go.
keep going.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
like, what do you think? I think sometimes we get so used to being in our circle, our social circle of people who are doing things like this. Like it gets bigger and bigger, and you see,
And you almost think
everybody
everyone does it.
Yeah, like especially like on social media, because you start getting all your friends become the people who do this, so it just becomes the norm. And then I think with the goals and expectations, then you start seeing times, and you start thinking, oh, I've got to do this and I've got to do this. Otherwise, it's not a big accomplishment.
It's not valid.
But if you step back and take that 30,000 foot view, like you said, like you realize crossing the finish line in 25 hours is a fucking huge accomplishment.
It is.
But we get so narrow focused because what we see around us, we start measuring ourselves up to
You compare.
like the pointy end of the spear, and then we forget like the feathers on the spear are still fucking huge.
Yeah. You're still part of the spear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody stays out for 25 hours, I think that in addition to the finish itself, which is extremely impressive, the fact that you were able to stick to something for 25 hours and not talk yourself into quitting is more impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not taking anything away from a buckler or the pointy end of the spear, but like they're out there for 12 hours.
Yes.
That person that's out there for 25 experienced twice as many dark spots.
Yeah.
And they are every bit of deserving of the recognition of crossing that line than as the person in first.
They are, but think of the contrast. Buckler, boom, 12 hours or less. Fanfare, music,
Beer.
Charlie on the mic calling their name,
The
beer.
sun is still out.
Ryan O'Dell from NUE taking pictures of them, putting on
Yeah.
social,
Yeah.
like the dog and pony show.
Right.
Dude and woman, 24 hours, 59 minutes,
Nothing.
dragging across the finish line. Me,
In a
Yeah.
daze.
a couple volunteers,
Yeah.
their wife and husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well,
It's crazy.
comes down to intrinsic versus
Internal.
external
Yeah.
motivation,
Yeah.
right? Like,
I mean, that'd be great to have all that fanfare, but
but if you're 24 hours, 59 minutes and don't get teary when you see your family
Yeah.
that crosses the finish line, that's still a pretty motivating moving
it is.
expectation.
is.
But it's hard to remember that when you're 18 hours and you still got like 6 more hours to go.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that you guys would actually probably agree with this. I think that when I look at who's there on the front end, the pointy end, and I look at who's on the back end, let's say the last 5 hours, who's still out there fucking grinding it through the night, dragging their ass and their bike up and down the hills. If I had to pick who I'm spending my time with,
Yeah.
I'm spending my time with the people who stay out for the last 5 hours.
And we've said that with our coaching.
Well, pretty entertaining.
There's a ton
Pretty
of coaches out there
entertaining,
that are great at coaching those people to podium spots. Like
Yes.
there's a ton of them out there. That's the glory coach, right? Like that's really cool. Like everybody wants their athlete to get on the podium. But like honestly, I love watching our athletes go from something that they never thought that was way out of their reach,
Yep.
walking them through the journey and then seeing them cross the finish line. Like it's not as much as the feeling that they're getting, but boy,
Right.
it moves me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've probably shed a couple tears to some of our athletes as they've crossed the finish line.
Absolutely.
Like that's so cool. Just to be part of it. They did the work, but
Yeah.
like to be a part of it is really cool. It's like a life journey. We're not just part of their racing world. We're part of their life journey at that point.
Well, think about the people on the front end, the pointy end of the spear. They're a very small percentage or fraction of society,
Oh, totally.
right? Mm-hmm. And they're also vying for a limited supply of podium spots, so that's hyper competitive.
Yeah.
Only so many are available. Limited supply, scarcity. But back to the person who finishes last, under cutoff. Or even
over cutoff.
or over cutoff. Freeman stuck in it in the Crusher,
that's
350
super
last year.
Amazing too. Yeah.
Right? He didn't need the pomp and circumstance. He didn't need the finish. He just needed to finish it
Yeah.
in
He did it for
whatever it
himself.
took. Yes.
100% for himself.
But even if you are on the back end of this, you're still a very small percentage
Absolutely.
of our
I was just
society.
gonna
And I think we forget that because
Yes.
that's
And
what we
to,
see.
To
yeah?
Al's point, like we surround ourselves with like-minded people on social media or whatnot,
Right.
and you just think that that's your world.
Yes.
You think it's bigger than it is.
You think that, yeah, everybody
but
does
then
that,
you go
right?
talk to people that don't do these things, and they're like, "People do this?
Are you stupid?
Yeah,
It's like,
how
you know,
many people do this?" And we're like, "Well, in my mind, I thought it was a lot, but it's not.
you know,
It's such a small."
this last year I've had some medical shit. It's like, herniated disc, and then I had to have my septum fixed because I broke it a couple years ago. And every time I go to a new doctor, you have to explain, and it's like a whole process.
Yeah.
It starts like, oh, well, I do a lot of long distance cycling or something like that, and they're like, oh yeah, like yeah, I get it, like
Couple
10,
hours
12
here.
miles, and they're like, no. And it just keeps building, and you go like 100 miles, and they're like, oh, they think it's like the 100-mile MS 100 or something, and then you're like, no, it's mountain bike. Oh, okay, I get it. And then you finally are like, okay, no, we're talking like 20, 30
Dude, I rode
hours.
my bike across the country.
And they're like, oh, like over a week, and like 30 hours, and you're like,
No,
oh,
like a month.
No, straight to it. And then, so it's like it's a challenge to explain to people what exactly
Yeah.
this kind of stuff
Well,
is, and
yeah,
and
it shows
so,
you that we are, like you said, a really small.
yeah, you
population.
realize,
It is.
okay, this is not the norm. Like we start thinking like this is just normal day-to-day shit, but it's really not.
It's not. No.
So anybody doing it should be super proud of it.
Yeah.
They should. And I think the difference, where we said on the front end, the podium's limited, only so many spots, only one winner.
Yeah.
3 podium spots, 5 podium spots, whatever. Anybody can stay out for 25 hours. That's unlimited. I mean, maybe the event, you could say the event cap, right, will limit the number of participants in the event. But anybody can step up and try to become a finisher with a 25-hour mindset.
Yeah, and that
Absolutely anybody.
and that's kind of what you were talking about at the beginning. If somebody comes to you right now and says, "How am I going to get prepared?" and that you need that 25-hour
I think
mindset.
that's the first conversation.
Like that's the first thing. Like first of all, don't forget this is amazing thing that you're doing in the first place.
Yeah.
So like if you need to readjust your goals and weather that storm, that's pretty huge accomplishment. So
There's I wrote a story in Marji Talk about a couple women that are doing it this year. The mini Marji. Did you guys see that?
I'm
Sure.
probably not.
So I'll give you a quick story because this is kind of on what we're talking about. So they go to the gym that I go to, and one of them has a child that's been in bike club for years. We've never really talked, but in this December we were kind of at the gym a lot at the same time. We start talking, it's all just casual stuff, and I happen to ask her, I'm like, "You doing Marji?" And she's like, "Oh my God, no, I don't do that kind of stuff." Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Oh, okay, fine." Keep talking, keep bumping into her. Gonna do Marji yet? Want to do Marji? Oh no, I can't do that. And mind you, she hasn't done any endurance events, isn't outside running, is essentially not doing anything related to even the activity that she's signing up to do, let alone at the level of difficulty of Marji. Finally, as we got close to the new year, I could tell she was starting to crack. And I'm like, "You just give me the word, we'll get you in."
Yeah.
first one's free. Here's
So she signed
Like a
up,
dealer.
and she signed up a friend.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting to watch because they are starting, I would say, for all intensive purposes, at absolute ground zero where you could start.
Couch to Margie.
Literally. I mean, they're in the gym working out, they're on the treadmill, they're
No,
strength
I
training.
just mean that. Yeah. Tongue in cheek.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think either they didn't know what a ramble was. They'd never been on a ramble.
Rambo.
Had never been on the trails. And so I'm getting updates
Yeah.
occasionally from them
Yeah.
on how it's going and talking about the 25-hour mindset and trying to help them understand
Yeah.
the mentality you have to have for what they've signed up to do. Mm-hmm. They've started doing their test runs, and I get different messages, and it's just every time I'll get something, I'm giving a very matter-of-fact, unemotional response to that's great, but this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Well, and
This is what it takes.
Yeah.
I think also, like a lot of people out there, you hear mini Margie, and they look, it's like whatever distance you choose this year, 15, 19 miles. They don't think that they need that 25-hour mindset.
Right.
Because it sounds like a fun run, and it's not a fun run. Like it's not. And so like they don't realize, I think a lot of people go into that and not realizing they're jumping in just because it's only 15 miles or it's the mini Margie doesn't mean it's going to be, you're going to knock it out in 2 hours and be home kicking your feet up, right? Like it's still like it's truly the equivalent of a normal like 50, 60
Well,
mile
yeah, you've compressed
for sure,
all the
right?
emotions
Like, yeah.
and everything into 18 miles of the entire race.
and
Tiny little distance. So it's probably harder.
We had the spouse of an athlete we have, at the time, spouse, I should say, mention Margie. She was doing Margie, and he's like, "Oh, every race director says it's like a super hard event." And I'm like, well, I can tell, like anybody out there listening that is going to discount the significance of even the mini. We have done a lot of races. We've done a lot of 100-mile races, and it's a different world. Mm-hmm. So when people say it's one of the hardest things you're going to do out there, you might want to listen up. This
It's legit.
It's not fluff.
Yeah.
It's not like a marketing gimmick to get you to sign up and tell everybody how badass you are. It's hard. You're going to go through hard things, even in the mini.
Yeah. But we call it the worst kids race in the country.
It is.
I started
completely
dubbing it
irresponsible.
as
heard
that.
That's the first time I've heard
Yeah, I've started referring to it as the worst kids race in the country.
It's fantastic.
And it's funny because some adults get offended by that. Well, I didn't sign up for a kids race.
Oh man. You're like,
And
no,
it's
you
like
didn't.
There's some badass kids out there.
It's like, but that to me, okay, you're already failing the first test, and the first test is the fucking mind game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And them getting upset and getting butthurt about me calling it the worst kids race in the country, that's just ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you got to let that stuff go. You know, it's just that is a chink in the armor. It's weakness.
Can you put that on shirts? I think you got to put that on shirts.
The worst kids race in the
because
country.
I would buy one. I would totally buy one.
We actually should probably do that.
You should. I don't know why you haven't.
Oh, we just started calling it that in the last couple of
there
years.
you go. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
welcome.
Well, and then as adults get wound up about it,
Yeah.
that just encourages me.
That's better.
Because then I'm just like, well, now we're absolutely going to call it that.
Yeah.
If they don't like it.
Yeah. I like how you broke that lady down at the gym. Al does that to me, but my timeline is not so much like 6 months before I make a decision. It's like 48 hours. But usually my first response is like, fuck no. And then I'm like, okay.
And I figured it
Okay.
out too. So I just plant the seed and then let it grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I do.
And
I
the
think
next
about
thing,
it.
and you know what the next step is? My inbox and my mail is like, bike reg. Hey, we signed up.
I think everybody needs a friend like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
More than people ever needed it now, because we are a fraction of society that's doing really hard stuff, testing those limits regularly. You know, the 25-hour mindset, I don't think that only applies to Margie. I think that's a life mindset.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's growth. It's growth as a human. Like, and this is just a tool to help us grow as a human. Like, you know, do hard things. So when hard things come at you, you're ready. I mean, that hard thing doesn't necessarily have to be Margie.
No.
It's life.
I mean, sometimes it's a Wednesday
Yeah,
for most people.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, until you experience this and you kind of assimilate into the community and you sort of get used to taking on these daunting physical tasks and engage in whatever level of training you participate in to prepare for it, because everybody does it at varying levels, but anything is better than zero.
Yeah.
I think if you're at zero, anybody who's at zero needs to look in the mirror, because the world is not getting easier. You're getting weaker if you're not doing this stuff. And it doesn't have to be Margie or 906 stuff either.
Right.
I think you could go and sign up for an easy trail festival, a 5K.
It's what challenges you. Everybody's
Wherever
got
you're
their
at right now,
challenge,
get
right?
challenged.
Well, it could be an academic thing too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
musical.
You know,
sure.
I know in the past at Marji Camp, Nick Afton, give a shout out to Nick. Like he's always talked about the troubles the mental troubles. So I think that doing hard things can go both ways. Yeah. Like he references the troubles that they had with their child, and you can pull upon that when you are going through those hard spots at Marji too. I do that all the time.
We do.
You know, like yesterday was my 7-year anniversary for being sober, and I think about how hard that was to fucking get sober.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And I, you know, how many times I've pulled that up in these events or at Marji or at Tour Divide or wherever the fuck it is. Like, if I can make it through that, this next 20 minutes, next hour, it's not going to kill me.
Right.
You know?
That's in your Rolodex.
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
Kristen
there you
put
go.
it.
But
Do you use one? A Rolodex for training? Like for your athletes?
No.
No. Like an
that'd be-
actual
Do you?
hard
No, I'm just thinking like it would
Rolodex?
be a really old school, interesting
Old
idea.
school technique.
A way for them to sort of create a Rolodex of just the tough shit they do.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
you could do like
yeah.
a virtual
You
thing,
could
like
use a virtual one.
put
yeah,
those
something
in
like
their
that.
Something to
storage
that
tank.
idea.
Yeah, that is a good
Yeah.
idea.
Thanks.
There's
I
something
do
to
like
that.
what you said about how everyone needs a friend like that to encourage them to do stuff, because
the
I think
bad
sometimes
influence?
bad, good, whatever. I think sometimes you don't see your potential or your capabilities in yourself. And I think when other people see it in
Absolutely.
you, you're like, oh shit, I would have never even considered doing something like that. But it's cool when someone can see it in you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, a few years ago, and I don't know if we talked about this in the last podcast or not. We just talked a lot of shit, but and I'm hoping we're not. It doesn't come across as braggy or anything. But a few years back, we put out like a survey of what we could improve as coaches and what people liked and what we didn't like. And the thing that popped up, and we didn't even. I don't even think
It was
a
organic.
category.
It totally happened.
You know,
organically.
everybody. One of the things they said is they liked the fact that we would throw different ideas out of them to for their next challenge.
Yeah.
You know, because I think it's typical. You go to a coach, you say, "This is my A race, and I need you to prep me for it," and then we just focus entirely on that. I don't know. It might be the same mentality that I get Kristen to do things. Mention it to her, but like you throwing out those next things, because I think people don't see their own potential. And so they think, if I can get to this, I've reached my goal. Well, I think that goal should always be moving. And you can't always see that through your own eyes.
Right.
Somebody else
Absolutely.
needs to show you, like, hey, I think you're capable of this.
Yeah,
and they're
absolutely.
like, I'm not capable of this. And they're like, yeah, you are. And then the next thing you know, they've accomplished it. And then back to what's the next, how far does it go? It's like, what's the next big thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Well, to what you just said about it's good to have a friend who can, encourage you to do different things because maybe they see something in you that you don't see in yourself. Mm-hmm. Another element to that, having an outside perspective is, and this actually goes back to the two women that are doing the event this year, and the one that I eventually got to sign up.
Yeah.
She has had a number of different ways that she identifies herself. One of them was as a person with asthma who can't run.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's good to have a friend who has not assumed all of
Your limitation.
your limitations on you and is seeing you just objectively as their friend and full of potential.
Yeah.
And my question to her was, oh, you got asthma? That's cool. When's the last time was it tested?
Yeah.
And it was like, like 15 years ago.
Maybe
I'm
you
like,
don't
well, you should
have
probably
it
get on that.
anymore.
Why don't you check it
Yeah.
out?
Yeah.
And she did. And then it was
Yeah.
like, oh, this isn't
As bad as
this isn't as bad of a problem.
Yeah.
But how long did she live with that limitation?
And then how many things did she not go out and pursue because of that?
Absolutely.
And it's a manageable limitation in most cases. You just have to be prepared for it. Know your issues and
Well, like
and
all the
work
people
through
that
them.
carry around EpiPens,
Yeah.
like they don't sit in their house. They're out in the woods where there's
Right.
wasps and
Right.
bad things.
So
all
don't
kinds
let
of challenges,
so
but-
don't let a limitation or a hurdle become an identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you do have to be prepared.
Sure.
I mean, and that's easy to do.
Yeah, you got to think about it, whereas I don't have to think about that if I get
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah.
Good stuff. Do we have anything else we want to cover before we roll out of here about Marji, getting ready for Marji, the road to the event? Anything else?
I will say if you need, like a little pitch, I guess. If you need, if you're close, you feel underprepared and you're signed up and you want to do it and you're a little worried, if you feel like reaching out, we can have that conversation and then
do it now.
Yeah, do it now.
But do it now.
Don't wait.
So if and that might be a no, but it's worth the conversation.
Yeah.
The beginning of the 25-hour mindset is right now.
Yeah.
Get to the fucking email.
Yep.
Send Mudslingers an email. Just send it because then it's on them to get back to you.
Right.
Which they will.
We will.
Yeah, we blow them off.
No.
Right.
Nope.
Out of office.
Swiping.
We'll talk outriding. We'll get back to you next month.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a good place I think that's a good spot to end this one.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about you need a person. Everybody should have a person. You guys can be that person if somebody is signed up.
Yeah.
If you are signed up and you're not ready, you should be reaching out.
Yeah.
Because you should not, I do not want to see you in Margie Talk trying to dump the registration. You signed up, own that shit.
Yeah.
Get after it.
Do it.
Show up in September.
It'll change your life.
Absolutely. And if you're not signed up, there's plenty of people.
dumping the
starting coming now.
It will
Find
happen.
one of those people who didn't reach out that are dumping it and grab that spot.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe those people are the ones that have been preparing the whole time and grinding and not knowing if they're getting in. So someone will take it.
I mean, I've told people because I know there's still people out there. Actually, it's been interesting this year. There have been people repeatedly asking, trying to find a registration.
And they're prepping.
And they're getting ready. And I've said forever that anybody who's absolutely dedicated to get into the event will get in. They will not be denied. They'll find a way in.
Find a way.
Even if it means emergency call to Todd the day after the registration window closes and the transfer deadline. Like if somebody calls me and they can prove out that they've busted their ass since October, I'm not going to keep them from giving them a shot. We'll fucking find a way to put them in.
Absolutely.
But you got to show you're willing to do the work to earn it.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Absolutely.
It's not a handout.
All right. Well, you guys got to go back to Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you coming up for Crusher?
Yeah.
We're in the point.
Are you in the point to point? Yeah. Okay.
And we still got to switch. What do we got to do to switch to unsupported?
We just told
send you an
him.
email?
All we had to do was tell you last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he seemed to have forgot that we're
No,
even doing
I know.
it, so I don't know.
'cause, Yeah.
Just making sure.
Unsupported.
Unsupported.
Yeah.
I'll grab the laptop when I get to the house and make sure you're unsupported.
Thanks,
Okay.
dude.
We're going to try to do a podcast on the point to point
Okay.
sometime in the next week or two
Cool.
to just kind of I've had a couple requests on it, like, hey, do a podcast on the point to point. So we'll try to talk through the route.
Okay.
We've already seen it is no longer a gravel route.
Now it's
This is
mountain
a
bike
mountain bike
course.
backpacking.
It's a legit bike packing route.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to hit
Mountain bike
Mountain bike
packing
backpack.
route.
it's a bike packing route. And you will hit
all
all
make
the
choices.
you'll hit all the trail systems from
Yes.
Stonington to Copper Harbor.
Just looking,
It's
it
the
looks like there's
Colorado
about
Trail at a
60
lower
miles of
elevation.
margin on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah.
We've had this route for a couple of years.
Have you now?
We've had it for a couple of years.
Nice.
Yeah, just been waiting to roll it out. I wanted to do it personally before we put it out to everybody, but that just has not happened. And it's like, we got to stop sitting on this thing because this is awesome.
I think we need to stop making excuses.
Yeah. Finish what you started.
Yes, heard.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting out of here. Until next time.
Thanks,
Bye.
Scott.
Later.
Thank you.